One of the things I just love about real estate is that old things become new things, and new things then become old things, and it's really interesting because back in the 80s when I was selling real estate, we did a lot of owner-carry type financing. It's the only way we could get deals done because interest rates were over 12%. In fact, at one point, they're over 13%. So we were doing a lot of owner-carry type financing, and that's fine. But today, when interest rates are so low, there are good situations for sellers that can present themselves where they might make a little extra money, or they might be able to put together a deal because of owner financing or seller financing. And certainly nothing wrong with that. However, all loans today have what's called a due on sale clause in them. And back in the 80s, some of the loans that we were dealing with were FHA assumables where there wasn't any credit qualification. Today, all loans have a due on sale clause in them. And even though FHAs and VAs are assumable, and some conventionals may or may not be assumable, we wrap seller loans all the time in today's market, and some brokers are maybe a little uncomfortable with that, but there's certainly nothing wrong with it. However, there are some rules from the division which require you as a real estate licensee to let buyers and sellers know of the risk involved if a buyer's taking over a seller's loan unofficially. It's wise to deal with a title company that understands all the rules and regulations. And there are several title companies around the state that do a lot of seller financing type transactions. And believe you me, they have a very mean language disclosure document which let the buyer and the seller know of all the risks they might be involved in doing a transaction like that. And of course, they'll just add your name to that mean language disclosure and your brokerage name, and you're off and running to the races. But you have an affirmative responsibility, meaning you must do it, to let sellers and buyers know of the risk that they're exposing themselves to with an owner-carry type transaction where they are assuming a loan from a conventional type lender that they're not letting the lender know. And it's certainly done all the time, and you can do it, but you have to do it with everyone walking into it with full knowledge of the risks that they're taking. Personal assistants are very popular in the real estate business today. And a lot of people are building teams where people on their team may or may not have a license. What you need to know is that if your personal assistant has a real estate license, that license would be hanging with your broker as well. But then that personal assistant, because they are licensed, can do anything that you can do. I mean, they have a real estate license just like you do. But if your personal assistant is not real estate licensed, they're there to do administrative type work, they are restricted in what they can do. They can be at an open house with you, a licensee, no problem. They cannot be at an open house without you. They can deliver documents around town. They can't explain documents, but they can certainly deliver a document across town that has a little Post-it note arrow on it saying sign right here, and hand it to a person, have them sign it, and then bring it back to you. Not a problem. But as far as explaining the ramifications of the document and the detail of the document, no, they can't do that. They can have keys made, they can put up signs, they can do lots of administrative things. They cannot make outgoing solicitation calls, nor can they go door knocking for you. Not with you, but for you. In other words, they can't go out and solicit business. Now, if they're talking to a friend and a friend says, so where are you working these days? And they say, well, I work for this particular real estate agent and I help them in their activities. Oh, yeah, do you have his card? Well, that's just a common courtesy. But they can't go out and solicit business with you in any shape or form. Now, can they do clerical things like print off letters and have you sign them and then put them in the mailbox? Absolutely. Can they look up ownership records? Certainly they can. Can they put stamps on postcards and send them out? Sure they can. They can do all sorts of administrative things, but they cannot do solicitation-type activities which require a real estate license to conduct, like door knocking, holding open houses, calling people on the phone. They cannot do that. The other thing about personal assistants is if they have a license, then you can do commission splits or whatever you want to, of course, everyone being paid through the principal broker. But if they do not have a license, then they must be paid on a predetermined wage, and they cannot be paid a bonus for $500 bonus on every deal that closes or anything like that that looks like you're sharing your commission. Someone feels like you've done them wrong. Well, they can file a complaint. Filing a complaint with the real estate division is easier than it ever has been. Used to be that the real estate division was buried in the blue pages in the phone book and nobody could ever find it. And so a lot of times people would call the local board, the board of realtors. Well, that's like complaining to a labor union that one of their members screwed up on delivering a package or something. They're not going to do anything. They want your dues in perpetuity, and so does the Board of Realtors. So what would happen is if they filed a complaint with the board, you might be brought in for an ethics type violation or something, but they're not public. And those ethics violations, if you did something wrong, you're going to get a slap on the hand and maybe a fine and maybe have to go to a class or something, but it's not a public procedure.